Hello and thank you for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour. With the news, I'm Tabitha John. Stay with us. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed convened with the Addis Ababa City Administration Cabinet to review the 2021-2022 budget year and the 2022-23 quarter activities performance. It is to be recalled that earlier this year, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed convened the Addis Ababa City Administration Cabinet to discuss a variety of issues and set a direction to be implementable in the administration's next 100 days plan, the Office of the Prime Minister of Ethiopia said. As a follow-up to the directions that had been set, the Prime Minister once again met with the Cabinet on Tuesday to review the city's previous budget year and the ongoing 2022-23 budget year quarter-year performance. The Prime Minister also entrusted and provided directional emphasis to the capital's Cabinet on expanding the good development endeavours throughout the city, as per the PM office. The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres hailed efforts by the African Union to broker peace in Ethiopia. In his remark at end-of-year press conference, he indicated African countries have not clearly benefited from special drawing rights, which tend to benefit the richest countries first and foremost. Expressing optimism, the Secretary-General said there have been measures of progress to help address some of the world's conflicts. What he observed in East Africa is promising. Take a listen to this.
And we're also seeing a measure of progress to help address some, unfortunately not all, but some of the world's festering conflicts. Much more, in any case, must be done in all situations. But diplomacy has helped pull several conflicts from the brink. In Ethiopia, efforts by the African Union to broker peace are a reason for hope. A cessation of hostilities and implementation agreements are in place. A pathway to assistance in the northern part of the country is emerging.
The United Nations Development Programme UNDP Economic Advisor Ali Zafar stated that Ethiopia's peace and reform programs will create opportunities to showcase achievements and galvanize foreign support for implementing its diverse and immense economic potentials for development. The UNDP Economic Advisor also stressed, as Ethiopia has huge resources and its strategic geographical location in the Horn of Africa, it is significant to give priority for its economic potentials. Tigustar Nisa has the following account from Ethiopia News Agency.
The UNDP Economic Advisor told Ethiopian News Agency that the peace environment and the reforms are the achievements that the country should promote to galvanize foreign support to catalyze resources for the utilization of its diverse sectoral potential for development and growth.
The peace environment, the reform program should be an opportunity for Ethiopia to showcase the accomplishments and also to galvanize foreign partners to support the reforms.
Despite the challenges encountered over the past 2 or 3 years, Ethiopia has huge economic potentials and good development history, the economic advisor pointed out, citing Ethiopia's huge resources and its strategic geographical location in the Horn of Africa.
These factors can be, and skills, and these factors can be catalyzed to help Ethiopia deepen its economic impact by having a stronger agriculture sector, a more professional and modern services sector, and a manufacturing sector that helps Ethiopia double its export performance in the coming years.
According to him, modernizing and building stronger agriculture sector in Ethiopia requires benefiting farmers by scaling up technologies such as the use of fertilizer and seeds, solving land issues by allowing farmers to use it as collateral to promote economic development, and investing in climate-smart agriculture, including drought-resistant seeds and irrigation.
ሌማት ማለት ብዙ ትርጓሜ አለው። ጥሬ ትርጓሜው ለምለም እንጀራ ማለት ነው። በሌላ በኩል ማዕድ ማለት ነው። ሌማት ቤተሰብ የሚበላበት ማዕድ ነው። ሌማት ላይ ከተረፈ ከቤተሰብ ተረፈ ማለት ነው። ከቤተሰብ ከተረፈ ወደ ጎረቤት ሄደ ማለት ነው። በቤተሰብ ደረጃ የምግብ ራስን መቻል ጉዳይ ኢትዮጵያ ካረጋገጠች በሀገር ደረጃ ያለው የምግብ ራስን መቻል ሩጫ የሚሳካ ይሆናል ማለት ነው። በሚቀጥሉት 4 ዓመታት ዶሮን፣ ስጋን፣ ወተትን፣ ማርን፣ አሳን ማትረፍረፍ እንፈልጋለን። ይህን ማድረግ እንችላለን። ልክ እንደ ግሪን ሌጋሲው፣ ልክ እንደ ስንዴው፣ ልክ እንደ ችግኝ መትከሉ ተረባርበን በአንድ ድምፅ ህዝባችን አሳብረን ከሰራን እንችላለን። ፕሮጀክት መጨረስ ባህል ሆኖ አሁን ያሉ ዋና ዋና ሜጋ ፕሮጀክቶች አልቀው የሌማት ትሩፋት ተሳክቶ በእያንዳንዱ ቤተሰብ ማዕድ ላይ ምግብ ከተረፈ ለምርጫ ባትወዳደሩም ችግር የለውም። የአንድ መንግስት ዜጎቹን መመገብ የሚያስችል ስራ በተርም ሰርቶ ምግብ የተረፈባት ኢትዮጵያ ካለች እኛ ቀጠልን አልቀጠልን ዋና አጀንዳ መሆን የለበትም። በሚቀጥለው 4 ዓመት ግን ይህን ማሳካት ግዴታ ተደርጎ መወሰድ አለበት።
American political economic analyst Lawrence Freeman said there is no reason for anybody to complain about the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. It is the greatest accomplishment in sub-Saharan Africa. Freeman noted that Ethiopia has reaffirmed many times that the construction of the GERD will not significantly affect the flow of the Abai River into the downstream countries. Freeman highlighted that the Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam GERD is the greatest accomplishment in sub-Saharan Africa, and everybody should congratulate the Ethiopian people for taking this bold challenge and building the dam that benefits the continent. Daniel Kasahun takes up Ethiopian News Agency's file.
The American political economic analyst Lawrence Freeman, who visited the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam GERD project, told ENA that there is no reason for anybody to complain about this dam. According to Freeman, it is in the United States' interest to support Ethiopia in its efforts to build the Renaissance Dam, the largest hydroelectric dam on the African continent. Ethiopia should therefore be congratulated by the United States and by the Western world for this phenomenal accomplishment, Freeman stressed.
As the dam is completed with 13 turbines, it will supply more power to the Horn of Africa. There is no reason for anybody to complain about this dam. This dam is one of the greatest accomplishments in sub-Saharan Africa, and everybody should congratulate the Ethiopian people for taking this bold challenge of building the largest dam in Africa and the 7th most powerful dam in the world.
Upon completion, the massive complex infrastructure is expected to generate almost 5,200 megawatts of electricity that will contribute to regional economic development, which will also provide stability to the region. Ethiopia should therefore be congratulated by the United States and by the Western world for this phenomenal accomplishment, Freeman reiterated. He witnessed the speedy construction of the Grand Renaissance Dam project.
I've always tried to get here, so getting here today was a very special moment in my adult lifetime. There's very few moments, if any, that equal today. And I think that the United States government and the Western governments should be praising Ethiopia and should be finding ways to help Ethiopia develop its economy, given the aspirations of the Ethiopian government to provide electricity. This is the first step. Much work has to be done.
Freeman also noted that Ethiopia has reaffirmed many times that the construction of GERD will not significantly affect the flow of the Abai River into the downstream countries. The American analyst believed that the Grand Renaissance Dam should be considered as a victory for this generation of Ethiopia like the forefathers.
As I studied the Battle of Adwa, where the Ethiopians under Menelik II defeated the Italian army on March 1st, 1896. That was the first time that an African nation defeated a so-called modern army. And Ethiopia, as a result of that, was never colonized. And the Ethiopian mindset is a strong identity for the nation and a bold vision for the future. This dam represents the same identity and mindset that we saw in Adwa. And when the dam is completed in 2025, I think we have to add to the Ethiopian calendar the Gerd Day next to the Adwa Day.
Ethiopia, which is a source of 85% of the Nile, is filling the Gerd reservoir through a gradual process and only during its rainy season to allow the river to continue flowing to downstream countries.
In the past 4 years, Ethiopia has planted over 25 billion trees in the Green Legacy Initiative to fight the consequences of climate change. Talking to ETV, Gemedo Dale, a lead environmentalist, called on Africans to join Ethiopian Green Legacy Initiative to fight climate change. Shagao Yamatao has the following detail.
Ethiopia has planted over 25 billion trees in the past 4 years. That's why the US government has given the Outstanding African Leadership Award for Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed recently for his achievement in the Green Legacy campaign to fight climate change. Talking to ETV, Gemedo Dale, lead environmentalist, appreciated the US government for its recognition to Ethiopia's Green Legacy initiative.
Ethiopia has a lot to share to other countries. Actually, the leadership of Ethiopia in environmental issues has been there since Ethiopia launched its climate resilient green economy strategy in South Africa, Durban, in 2011. Since then, the leadership is there, the commitment is there, and particularly the current Prime Minister, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, has taken very bold and exemplary action, which has resulted in such high-level recognition.
Although Ethiopia has been discharging its responsibility in restoring forest ecosystem, all African countries shall coordinate their efforts to fight climate change as its impact is not limited to a single geographic region, Dali urged.
As the impact of climate change is not limited to a single geographic region or a single country, all countries, for example, in the Eastern Africa or Horn of Africa, or in general Africa, shall coordinate their efforts, because if Ethiopia is doing everything it can do, but the other countries are not taking proper actions, finally we all suffer the impacts of climate change. So coordinated and aligned actions are important, and for that global leadership should support the initiative of Ethiopia under the Green Legacy Initiative and the commitment of the Prime Minister.
The environmentalists further suggested that mandated institutions need to have follow-up systems to nurture planted seedlings in addition to controlling deforestation of the already existing forest coverage.
Millions have been mobilized, and billion Ethiopian financial resources have been invested. All these are meant to achieve a restored forest ecosystem. How are we monitoring? Do we have monitoring system in place? And what is the take-home assignment for each, particularly for those institutions mandated to follow up those activities? And the other one is, when we are investing our energy, our resources to restore degraded forest ecosystems, still today we are losing significant forest coverage in existing forest.
The US government has given an award for Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for bold measures he has taken in the Ethiopian Green Legacy Initiative to fight against climate change.
Dear viewers, now I'm preparing to host the news package of the day. Our reporters are always striving to present you fresh stories on Ethiopia's socio-economic and political affairs. And we, the presenters, we always strive to present to you the stories in a way that you can relate to. Before I head to the studio and present myself to the audience, I have to look presentable. Hello, dear viewers. I'm Tabitha John, and this is Addis News Hour. Do stay with us. Welcome back. The National Disaster Risk Management Commission stated that more than 8.3 million people have received first-round humanitarian assistance since the Pretoria Peace Agreement was signed. Commissioner of the Commission, Ambassador Shifarao Teklamariam, discussed with representatives of international partners and donors on areas of priority in the relief operation process. It is stated on the occasion that humanitarian assistance is being delivered steadfastly to people affected by the conflict in Amhara, Tigray, and Afar regions. The commissioner elaborated that 8,359,000 people have received first-round humanitarian assistance since the Pretoria Peace Agreement was signed between the federal government and TPLF. Currently, 29 international relief organizations are involving in relief operations in Tigray region. The UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, UNOCHA, announced that Germany has granted additional €6 million for Ethiopia humanitarian funding. According to OCHA, the financial assistance contributed by Germany will be used to deliver crucial funding to humanitarian activities in Ethiopia in delivering vital protection response. The Ethiopia Humanitarian Fund supports a timely, life-saving and needs-based approach with a focus on emergency readiness and response, according to OCHA. A commitment of the Ethiopia Humanitarian Fund is for the most vulnerable people to be at the center of programs, OCHA said. A political analyst urges Africans to stand in unison for their interests for any meaningful U.S.-Africa relations to proceed. During his stay with the weekly Addis Dialogue TV program here at TTV English, Jonas Buru, also an economist by profession, went on to say that U.S.-Africa relations must have sufficient room for shaping and influencing African agendas. Kasau Chani has the rest of the story.
United States-Africa relations need redirecting along the way of constructive engagement, according to the expert. It could be more appropriate for the United States government to work with African governments to effect the envisioned change in socio-economic, political and security spheres rather than work against them.
What is Africa doing in terms of playing its role in influencing where this thing is heading? Mm-hmm. What is our own country, Ethiopia, doing? When we're invited to come to the U.S. or invited to go to the European Union, and they have their agenda, and they tell us this is our agenda. Why isn't Africa prepared to come with a joint policy? This is also what we want out of this relationship. There is a new paradigm shift in geopolitical and geoeconomic space. That causes a change in international development. So Africa is at a position now, and again, starting from our poverty is our strength view, that Africa can also dictate, okay, we need change in the way we are relating to each other.
From December 13 to 15, President Biden hosted leaders across the African continent in Washington, D.C. for the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit. Reportedly, 49 African governments, the African Union Commission, representatives from civil society and the private sector, young leaders and the African diaspora and the United States attended the event spanning 3 days. According to Buru, until Africa can achieve the development endeavor, it cannot be predicted that the implications of the foreign pressures all over the continent.
Until that happens, we really cannot predict what the implication would be, because it's one group, primarily China on the one side, European Union and the US on the other side. So What is the missing link in this is, what did Prime Minister come with when he came to Washington? What did the African continent as a continent came to Washington? What is our agenda? We know their agenda. So this is where the discussion needs to focus. This is on us, on Africans. This is on us as Ethiopians. We have to change the EU, US, China nexus on the one hand. You know, how are they playing each other in this geopolitical fight or geopolitical rivalry? On the other hand, the China, US, EU, Africa relationship. How should it evolve? And most importantly, this African psychology that always comes as a victim of international politics, that needs to change.
For quite a long, United States engagement in Africa tended to prioritize United States interests, failing to take into account the fast-paced changes occurring across the continent. Today, Africa has emerged as one of the world's most sought-after destinations for digital innovation and entrepreneurship. New and emerging technologies associated with the fourth industrial revolution hold both opportunities and risks in critical sectors.
In business news, following the peace agreement signed between the government of Ethiopia and TPLF, the tourism sector of the country is showing signs of recovery, the Ministry of Tourism said. The conflict that took place in the northern part of the country, combined with the coronavirus pandemic, has had a negative impact on the tourism sector. According to the State Minister of Tourism, Salamawit Dawit, the tourism sector is one of the sectors negatively affected by the conflict in the northern part of the country. The State Minister further said that peace is the key to the development of tourism. Hence, the peace agreement has opened a new chapter for the sector, and the sector has now been recovering. According to her, following the agreement, the number of foreign tourists and the Ethiopian diaspora entering the country for business and tourism is on the increase. To lure more tourists for the upcoming Christmas and baptism holidays, promotion of tourism destinations is undertaken, she said. The development works being carried out by the government, including in Addis Ababa, are mostly centered on tourism sector development and aimed at laying a foundation for the development of the tourism sector. The Commercial Bank of Ethiopia, CBE, has resumed banking services in Shire, Alamata and Koram towns in the northern part of the country. It is to be recalled that the bank was forced to stop banking services due to the instability in the northern part of the country. Following the recent peace agreement, CBE branches in Shire, Alamata and Koram towns have started receiving money from abroad and local customers, as well as depositing money, the bank stated. In the future, as circumstances permit, it will continue our efforts to please our customers by expanding services to all branches, the CBE said. The government of Ethiopia has been working hard to provide humanitarian aid, restoring basic services and reconstruction efforts in the northern Ethiopia, they added. Ethiopian Airlines expects its passenger business to return to its pre-pandemic levels in its current financial year ending in June, said Mesfin Tasso, CEO of the airline. In an interview with Reuters, Mesfin Tasso stated from 8.6 million passengers in the previous financial year and 12.1 million before the pandemic struck, Africa's biggest carrier will ferry 12.7 million passengers during this year. Mesfin attributed the forecast to lifting of restrictions on movement around the world. the carrier's own expansion in terms of new planes and destinations, and a peace deal signed last month to end a 2-year conflict in the north of the country. Ethiopian fared much better than other African carriers during the pandemic thanks to its cargo business that was able to compensate for a steep drop in passenger traffic. It is already looking beyond the health crisis with an expansion plan to double its fleet and network, boost annual revenue and passengers by 400% and 440% respectively by 2035. Under the expansion plan, Ethiopia is ordering new planes from Boeing, Airbus and de Havilland across all categories, aiming to double the size to 271, he said. It has started new routes to Zurich, Amman and Bulawayo since July, Mesfin said, and it is targeting Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Karachi, Copenhagen and Atlanta, part of the drive to double international destinations to 207 by the target year.
The 70th Global Inter.
It's expected that Ethiopia is Ethiopians
Our news is always aired on Monday to Friday on 11 a.m. and 9 p.m. and also on Saturday and Sunday on 9 p.m. Make sure to follow us.
And finally, from across Africa, the Ivory Coast Metro is one of the largest infrastructure projects on the continent. It is an ambitious project, a social project that will benefit millions of people in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, French Economy Minister Bruno Le Maire said. Kasaun Chane has the details from African News.
Ivory Coast on Monday commissioned 2 major infrastructure projects in the Ivorian economy capital Abidjan, the construction of the metro and the extension of the international airport.
The purpose of my visit is obviously to mark the concrete launch of the completion of major infrastructure projects here in Abidjan.
The launch had imprisoned French Economy Minister Bruno Le Maire, who signed agreements including credits for the project.
The metro is one of the largest infrastructure projects on the continent. It is an ambitious project, a social one that will benefit millions of people in Abidjan.
The cost of the work is estimated at 1.36 billion euro. The line will cross the Ivorian metropolis from north to south over 37 kilometers as far as the airport. The construction work is being delayed for years, but the government hopes that the metro will be operational by 2025.